Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing a keyboard replacement on this Dell Latitude 7400. This keyboard replacement is definitely one of the more advanced repairs you can do on a Dell Latitude, simply because you have to take out the motherboard to get to the keyboard. So I'm not going to be too detailed throughout this repair, simply because this is a more advanced repair. But if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments, or you can refer to one of my other videos. Okay, so first off, to get into this guy, we have 8 screws. So we have these three, and then these 2. And if you see, it's not coming up. So I can visually tell it's that middle screw. So just loosen that a bit. There we go. Okay, so let's get into it. Just like with any laptop, first thing you do is the battery. We have to pull up the motherboard, so I'm just going to take out the CMOS battery right now too. And let's hold the power button to discharge all the capacitors. Hold this for like 10-15 seconds. Okay. So now that the capacitors are discharged, let's start with the battery. Now let's do the RAM. You just pull these metal tabs and it pops right up. In case you guys are wondering, I'm placing all these parts on an an ESD-proof bag. So when I take them out, I just set them on a bag. Okay. Let's get the SSD out. And for this repair, I might as well do the thermal paste on the CPU. So let's take that off. Okay, so now we have pretty much taken off everything. So now it's time for the motherboard. There are 2 ways to do this. So the first way, which is the most conventional way, would be to take everything off. So every single screw, every single one of these connectors, everything, and you pull the whole board. But you don't necessarily have to do that for these models. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off all the screws and these connectors at the bottom. These ZIF connectors, this one, the speaker. We're going to take all those out and we're going to flip the board like that. And once the board's resting up here, we'll have access to the keyboard that's right there. So let's start with all the screws. Okay, sorry, actually, let's do the cables first. So these are called ZIF cables. So they have a little flap on top. So you flip the flap up and you pull it out. ZIF stands for zero input force. So that means you're not supposed to, it doesn't take any force to put it in. And that also means it doesn't take any force to take them out. There's a little lip, but you just pick that up a little bit and they just pull right out, just like that. So I got those 2. And that kind of seems like everything, because we're going to leave this and this. So now let's get to the screws. Specifically, these motherboard screws. So this looks like it might go through. So we're going to take these out. And if you're worried about putting the wrong screw in the wrong hole, because that can definitely damage your board, it's called screw damage. What you can do is you can get a little mat, right? Any mat works. This one's magnetic because it's by far the easiest. But what you're going to do is you're going to take the screws off and then you're going to place them on the mat where you took them off from. So this is the top right. And see, we can take this whole thing off. So I'm going to take this whole thing off. If you can leave them together, it's by far the best option. But you take that and you put it kind of where it was. So that's what I'm going to be doing for every screw I take off. This screw I'm going to take off too, just because it could go through the whole board. These are a little weird, just wiggle it a little bit. Oh, I forgot this connector. We got those. Looks like we have these ones now. They're just two silver ones, two silver screws, and they just hold this plate in, which our plate's bent, so we can bend that back. So I'm gonna try to leave the screws in the plate while I take it off. Just like that. Okay. Oh, see? So when you think you have them all, you want to do a visual inspection. And the way I like to do that is I just pan. So I start here. Usually they keep screws in line, so I'm going to follow this line all the way down. No screws. Follow this line. No screws. There's another one. And there's one more screw right there. Okay. So now we can kind of wiggle the board to see if it's loose. Definitely seems like it is, except this connector's in the way. So let's take that one out. And now that the screw is not supported anymore, or now that the motherboard's not supported by screws anymore, we want to hold it. So I'm just gently walking this one back and forth. There we go. So now this board should just flip up, but I don't want it resting up here. You definitely don't want there to be any tension on these wires or cables. You want it to be resting there and these cables still be loose. So I have a large ESD bag. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay this like this. And then that way when I flip up this board, it's resting on this bag. And if it's drooping too much, I can place something under this bag to hold it up. We'll see if I have to do that. So I'm gonna gently see if I can pull this board up. Never done it like this before, so we're both learning. And it seems like it'll do it, but this guy's in the way. Just this screw, I'm sorry, just this cable is in the way. So let's take out the AC power adapter. Now this guy will just pop right up. So no, what it is it's these ports. These ports are on the side, so you see all your I/O ports, typically they're recessed into the plastic a little bit. So I'm gonna have to try and pull this board back and pull this forward. Gently, of course. So I feel like I can be more gentle with a wedge. So we got some of it. We'll just come back, leave this here so it doesn't fall back down. See, see if we can get the other side. Okay, so we got the other side. So what we can do is we can pull this out. Yeah. It's really that Thunderbolt port that got stuck in there. So now this board's out. Oh, there's a little piece I forgot. But we're gonna rest this up. It looks like it's free. So there we go. So these cables are still loose. They're not tight. They're holding a little bit of force, but it should be fine. It's really not much. So now we need to get to the keyboard, which is under this guy. We've got a lot of screws to go through. So I noticed these screws are much smaller Phillips. So I'm gonna take this bit off. I'm gonna grab a smaller Phillips, see if that fits. Doesn't. So we need to find the right bit first. If you don't use the right bit, you're gonna strip screws. There's no way around it. That's why it's really nice to have a good screwdriver set. These guys look tiny. Maybe not that small. There we go. So that fits in real snug, doesn't wobble too much, and I can't twist it at all. So that's perfect. So I'm gonna unscrew these 20 screws, and it should happen in a second for you guys. Okay, and the million screws are out. So now the keyboard is for the most part loose, but if we try pulling it out now, these connectors are gonna get in the way. So just like the other ones, popping up this little flap, and we're gonna pull it out. They do have this blue thing that you can grab, definitely helps. There we go. I like to close them again. So pull that out. And let's pull this one out. Okay. So now, this should pop up. It's kind of giving me trouble. I don't know. So let's use reasonable force and see if we can push it up. Okay, see that? You hear that? That was a clip popping. So I'm gonna move down on the keyboard. There we go, see that? Now I'm gonna move down a row on the keys, and I'm gonna go back down, just pressing the keys. Okay, I'm going down another row. There we go. Now that we have this popped up, if we hold it, it should help the rest of them pop out. So there we go. There is our magical keyboard. Look how funky that looks, huh? Okay, so I don't really want to move this to another location, but if we look at our keyboard, our replacement keyboard is only the button part. So there's this metal plate that we have to take off and put onto the other keyboard. And it's just these 2 screws. Oh, we got 4 screws. So we take those 4 screws out, and we should be able to just pull it right off. So that's what I'm gonna do off camera real quick, and we will be right back. Okay, so I took the screws out, and now this should just peel right off. Okay, see, I was getting a little aggressive there. There's a tiny screw right there. Very weird. Let's take that screw out and it'll just pop right off. Okay, and with that screw off, we just take that off. Now we're gonna put our new keyboard on. Okay, so now we have our new keyboard on, nice and fresh and clean. So now we just do everything we just did, but in reverse. So we're gonna align where this goes. And like you guys saw, we had to pull clips. So now we need to push those back. I'm sure if I opened it, I could feel where it's loose, but I'm just gonna use even pressure and press. It's not really doing nothing. It's still loose. Okay, well, let's get these screws in first, and then we'll see if we can get those clips in. So let's put back in those 20 screws. Okay. So now that they're back in, let's see how it looks. See if I can open this. Yeah. So what we can see now, I don't know if you can see it, but when you push a key, it kind of falls back in. So there are definitely clips we need to get. Okay. I think the way I have to do it is on this side, I'm gonna press in between the buttons. I'm gonna hold the case itself while I push on the opposite side. I'm gonna find where this bump is. Hold the, hold the frame on the inside and press it in. And I'm just gonna do that for every row of the keys. Okay. So now the keyboard feels much better, looks much better. And if you are not sure that you have them all, what you can do is you can look at the computer sideways and see if all the keys are level. All the keys are level, then you can assume all those clips are in. And they all look level except one over here. And that might just be the way the keyboard looks, but let's see if we can get a clip in over here. Doesn't really seem like it. Oh, there we go. We got one. Yep, that looks better. Maybe there's one over here we missed too. Yep, there we go. And now all the keys seem to be at the same height. I wish I could show you, but I can't move this laptop. But just visually, all the keys look like they're where they're supposed to be. So. Now that's in. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put the motherboard back the way we took it out, which was this side was out while this side was in. So we're gonna push the board this way a little bit and try to align it into those I/O ports. There we go. If you're not sure, you can look through the ports and it still needs to go down. There we go. So now this side just drops right in. You can look at the ports on both sides. If the ports look right, then it's down enough. If they're not, then it's not right. This side is a little off, but that's just because there's no screws holding it down. Okay. So now we need to put the screws back and everything we took out. So I don't necessarily remember where all the screws are that I took out, right? I mean, obviously I could refer to this video, but you're not gonna be able to do that. So we refer to our magnet plate. So it looks like we had 3 screws up here that we had to take out. And those are gonna be in this side of the board. Then we had this clip, this one, and that one, and that was it. There are more screws that hold in the motherboard, but it's the screws on the case. Like the back panel, when we took that off, those screws actually help hold in the motherboard as well. So we can also look at the arrows. They're really handy. They tell you which ones are responsible for holding in the board. Pretty sure one went right here. So these, it's a little like clip. So you want to push against the side wall, then it'll drop down. I have no idea what this guy does, but he does something. And this is a really high danger area. There's a lot of fine pins. And if dirt manages to find its way into those pins, especially conductive dirt, you can break your laptop. So it's always good to take that panel off and clean it. Okay, and then we took out our AC adapter. This is what you plug in the charger to. So for these, you can definitely drop it in and then pull it out, but you kind of see where the wire wants to go. So it definitely went like this. So I usually connect it first and then drop it in. And this works just like that clip, so you hug this side first and then drop it. Perfect. And then there was one screw left. I really think it should go there. It really should. Oh, that one threaded in. Okay, so that was just a different thread pitch than the other screw I was trying to use. Well, there we go. So now our motherboard's back in. Hard part's done. Now we connect these ZIF connectors. So open the flap. You can blow them out too. It's never a bad idea. Okay. I like to use tweezers for this. We're gonna move it side and side until it just slides in. Again, ZIF, zero input force. They just slide right in. And then I like to hold it down and pull it towards the connector and flip it. Okay. So like with this connector, I like to grab the tag, get it near it, and then you just feel your finger to feel it in. Now it's all the way in. So I'm going to try to bend the tag kind of downward just to make sure it's making good contact. Close it. They're really quite easy once you get the hang of them. There we go. So that's in. Now, it's just the way I like to do it. It works every time, and you know, once something works, you keep doing it. So I'm gonna get the tag. I'm gonna bend the tag kind of down and just pull it in, just like that. Perfect. Okay, those are all in. And then we have this connector. You want to make sure it's still routed the way it was, which it's not. And of course, it's because this isn't taut yet, but once we put it in, it will be. And it might be hard to realign this cable. Okay. Now that's in. We got this one. And now we have this guy. This is sometimes the trickiest one. So if you have tweezers, using tweezers to hold it, usually the easiest way to get it in. And again, you want to make sure it's aligned. There we go. And now because we moved the screen, these guys just came out of where they're routed. And you want to reroute them because it can interfere with the hinge. So let's see. Seems like this black one wants to be on the bottom. There we go. Now let's get the white one in. And it's not as clean as I'd like. Maybe that black one did want to be on top, but it's not gonna fall out. So that's the biggest thing. You can lay these down side by side too. Maybe that's what it wants. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Okay. No, that's pretty much everything. Oh, I forgot about this guy. He's real important. He even looks like he's plugged in, but he is definitely not. There we go. Okay. And now you just do a visual inspection. Everything looks good. Make sure you don't have any leftover screws. And now I'm gonna reapply thermal paste. However, I'm not gonna use thermal paste. I'm gonna use a thermal pad. I got this thermal pad I cut squares out of. This stuff is quite expensive. I wanna say this little square was almost 30 bucks. But it is really good. Really surprising thermal performance. I mean, it's phenomenal. I'm gonna use it on every laptop I ever get into now. It's that good. So I'm gonna clean this off, clean off the heatsink, put the screws in the heatsink, and then I'll come back when I'm laying these on. I'm not gonna show you exactly what I'm doing because I have another video on that, but I will at least show you how I apply it. Okay, so I have meticulously cleaned this CPU and the heatsink. The reason I've done that is because we are using a thermal pad now and not thermal grease, and they are completely different chemical compounds and they will interact with each other. And if you have any thermal grease left on the CPU, either around it or anywhere that it can touch this thermal pad, it's gonna have chemical reactions and it's gonna deteriorate this pad much sooner than it should, and it's probably gonna perform much worse than it can. So meticulously clean these. And now I'm gonna put the screws back into the heatsink. So we got the screws in. I actually forgot to blow this guy out, so I'm gonna blow him out and clean all the dust out, and I'll be right back. So with the screw set in that, I'm just gonna have that right above me. So when I need it, it's all ready to go. So this is probably the most technical part of this entire repair job. This is unnecessary. By all means, you can use thermal grease, but this stuff has almost the same amount of cooling as liquid metal when it's applied correctly. And that is the key word, when it is applied correctly. This stuff is incredibly difficult to apply, right? And that's because you don't want any bubbles under it. So I'm gonna show you the technique I use. You can try whatever technique you want, but keep in mind that this stuff is impossible to get off of the CPU when it's on. Obviously, it's not literally impossible, but it took 10 minutes to get it off the last time I put it on wrong. So I'm gonna find a sponger that's clean. Make sure you guys are focused. Now I'm gonna line it up. And I'm gonna keep the thermal pad raised. I'm just gonna try to scrape it on. Just like this. Very slowly, very carefully, and very evenly. Now, even though I'm close to finishing, I'm not gonna drop it. I'm holding the top, so I want to try and get the bottom, and now I'm going to drop it. Hopefully, by the time it falls, you can scrape it all on. Okay. Just like that. And I'm going to find the corners of it, and I'm going to lay the corners down. Let's take a look at that. So, almost looks like there's a bubble there, but I don't think that is a bubble. It's just different height of the material. Bubbles are much more dominant. So, I'd say that's perfect. And then what you do is you take your scraper and you really try to define the crease of the edge of the CPU so that when you take off this plastic, the excess thermal pad will come with it. Now let's do this one. So we peel that off. And now because we made that crease, we can peel this off. Let's get to the GPU before we break anything. Oh, look at that. See, that's, oh, that's nice. Look at that. So if you get the crease in just right, it'll just pop right off. As long as you keep this up high enough, it's not actually gonna make contact with that stuff. It takes quite a while to actually make contact with it. So, I'm gonna realign this screw. That's definitely in. Align this screw. And that's in. And now it actually dropped where it's supposed to. Perfect. Done. Slap the date on there. Slap our memory back in. Put in our M.2. Make sure it's actually being held by the screw. I've seen them not. Okay. Okay. There we go. So this is pretty much everything, right? Well, now at this point, just like with every single build, I want to go around checking every single screw, making sure they're inserted properly. See, these are all kind of loose because I used an electric drill. Just gonna go around every single one of these and tighten. That one was really loose. There we go. These ones are fine. These ones are fine. Okay, we're good. Oh, there's one right here. It's already pretty tight. Okay, we're good. Now, the piece we started with finally goes back in. Get that. This battery's nice because it retains the screws for you. Like, come on. What company has batteries that retain the screws for you? Like, please name me one more in the comments, because I don't know. Dell is the only company that gives you nice things that are supposed to make this process easier. Everyone else wants to make this process as hard as possible, so you don't do it. But okay, battery's in. Battery's plugged in now. We close this guy. Make sure the clips are good. Look at our work. Beautiful, fresh keyboard. And now because we removed the CMOS battery, we obviously can just turn it on, but it's gonna have to recover BIOS because we wiped BIOS. And these are really nice because they will recover the BIOS from the hard drive we put in, but still you don't want any interruption to power while it's doing that process. So it's always good to plug it in. Just plug it in, please. So now we're gonna plug it in. Hopefully my camera doesn't die here. We're at less than 10%. Okay, plugged in. Keyboard's lit up. Cap lock lights on. Keyboard lights on. And it's gonna think. It's gonna go through 3 phases. This first phase is like, hey, something weird's happened. Let's make sure all our components are still good. So it's running an internal diagnostic scan. It's called POST. Pre-operating system test. So while it does that, it's gonna eventually finish up and this light's gonna turn off and that keyboard's gonna turn off, just like that. And then it's gonna turn back on, just like that. Now we're into stage 2. So it scanned the hardware and it's like everything's good, but we still need to recover the BIOS. So now let's start to recover the BIOS from the hard drive. So it's gonna take a second. It's reading the hard drive, remembering all the settings it had. And then after that's done, light's gonna turn off, light's gonna turn off. And if we did everything right, we should see some life out of the screen. This is in real time, by the way. I don't wanna speed it up so you can see how long it takes. And there we go. Time of day not set up. Invalid configuration. And that's because we wiped the battery, so it keeps track of time. I'm just gonna click continue. It keeps track of time, and whenever you unplug that battery, it forgets what time it is. It gets very mad. Should boot to our Windows installation. And we are done at that point. Well, if you guys watched this whole video, I really appreciate it. As you can see, this keyboard repair is quite intensive. It took about 2 hours. Could probably do it in an hour if I wasn't recording. But either way, it is a big job. And if you're worried about it, just take it to a shop. It's not worth breaking this really nice computer. Whenever you're messing with the motherboard, it's very scary, and there's a lot of places that it can go wrong, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But if you follow my steps, you should be just fine. Okay guys, well, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll forget that this device ran into problems and we'll restart it for you. I'll probably add in what fixed it. I just have to reset it. Okay, so my phone's still about to die, but just telling you guys what fixes it. You go into your BIOS settings, you go to SATA operation, and you change it from RAID on to AHCI. You won't have to do this unless you use AHCI, but I do, and because I do, the computer didn't know what was on the hard drive, didn't know how to read it because it was expecting RAID. So now we click apply, save as settings. Actually, we don't even have to do that. We just hit apply, okay, exit, and now it should actually recover its BIOS settings. So we should see the spinning thing, and now we should actually make it to the OS. My phone very well might die, so we'll see if we can see it. there we go. And if you guys want to fix that time thing, just go down here, right click, adjust date and time. Sync now. There we go. We're all good. And the most important thing, this keyboard works. Well, I will see you guys another time. Thanks for watching.